So good morning, everybody. This is Lori Niedermeyer at Confessions from the Farm. And this morning I'm joined by the lovely Dawn Bast. And so Dawn, if you'd be so kind as to introduce yourself so that the people that may catch this will know who you are and what you do.
Thanks, Lori. Thanks for inviting me to be on here. It's really fun to get together and just have a conversation. Yeah. Um, so my name is Dawn, obviously, and I am there's so much I could tell you, but I'm a mom and of three adults, and we homeschooled them for 11 years. So that really impacted my life. And when they finished high school, they went off to high school to finish. We decided to do that back in the early 2000s, and I went back to school. I thought, have a midlife crisis or go back to university. So I went back to university and kind of began about an 11-year journey and got all the degrees that a person needs to become a certified teacher in BC. And that was a dream for a really long time. And mixed into that dream was, I knew that I wouldn't be working in a school setting as an educator for a long time. I knew I needed to do that. That was something I wanted to do, was to experience that setting with children and other teachers, but I knew it would be abbreviated. So at year 8, which was like last school year, I knew that it was time to start making an exit plan. So I started building a learning center, which is now called Body Brain Learning. And I've been dreaming about that for about 15 years, and there's a whole backstory to that. But Body Brain Learning is a dream child of mine, and it's in the beginning stages, the first couple of years. And so at Body Brain Learning, we really are focused in on helping learners who are really stuck. And we use therapeutic methods to really drop the stress, because by the time they get to me, they're really quite stressed, and their families are often quite stressed. So, and then there's also academic tools that I have tucked in my tool belt that I work with them as well to help build academic skills.
Yeah. Okay, that's amazing. And I know it's work that is so crucially and so vitally important. So generally, when you talk about helping the clients that are having difficulties, what types of things are their difficulties? I mean, obviously there's learning disabilities, but is there anything in particular that you're seeing more and more of, or is it just sort of a blanket learning issues or what I deal with?
Right. So I kind of wear two boots. I like to think of it as, on one foot I've got all my teacher training and all the specialties around that I've taken lots of literacy development kind of, and how to teach that effectively. So that's kind of, literacy tends to be a strong focus for me, because in my mind, learning to read is a basic human right. And lots of our kiddos, and this is not a blame thing at all when I say this, but there's just lots of kids that are not learning to read. And that it's not finger pointing. That's just the way it is. And so that is a big concern to me, because once you get kids reading, they can learn anything. They can be self-driven learners. And so I'm also speaking to that. I'm also concerned about teaching kids how to learn and how to think. So that's kind of my teacher side of me. And then the other boot that I wear is I use therapeutic methods to drop the stress and look at the reasons why learning is so difficult for that person. And so I use a method called natural bioenergetics to bring the body and the brain into balance and to zero in on what that person needs. Sometimes they have something, inflammation in the brain that's causing a problem. So we can address that through natural bioenergetics or other things that might be going on for them. So it's more energetic in nature. And I also use brain gym movement to really help that person ready themselves in effective ways for the learning process they're about to enter. Yeah.
Mhm. Spectacular, spectacular. I know the natural bioenergetics is very powerful.
Mhm.
I've experienced that myself. So it's like, yeah, they're so cool, and the stuff that you bring together is so fascinating, and I'm enjoying hearing more and more about it. I know we're working in a group collaboratively to
Yeah.
help each other move our businesses forward, which is part of what this is for. But it's also nice to get to know Dawn a little bit more. So outside of being a mom and being this fabulous educator and this brilliant, brilliant person that I know you are, who is Dawn? What does Dawn like to do when she's
Oh,
not
well,
studying her brains out?
yeah. No, I mean, that is a hobby. You know, I was thinking about it last year. My husband of 36 years said to me, why are you always in a course and a workshop and, you know, whatever. And I thought, I did think about that for a long time.
Mhm,
And it was one of those questions that led to some soul searching, which was good.
mhm,
And I think that I realize you know, there's lots of things I don't do hobby that people consider hobbyish kind
mhm,
of activities. But plugging myself into a variety of learning experiences, I'll probably do it my whole life because it's a hobby. And I
mhm,
realize that.
yeah,
So, so there's that. And, but I also love kayaking. My husband and I had kayak together. We take our boats down. It's our happy place is down on Vancouver Island, sort of like in the Nanaimo, Parksville, Qualicum Beach sort of
mm,
area.
yeah. Oh, it's
So
so
that's
beautiful there.
oh my goodness. I'm like, it's like the Hawaii of Canada. It's
Hmm.
so beautiful.
Yeah,
So we go there often
yeah.
and several times a year, take our boats with us and locally too. We've got beautiful lakes around here. So we
Hmm.
went Nest Lake and any lake we can get our boat onto. I love
Hmm.
fishing. And I yeah, I mean, I don't have a lot of time for much else. I love camping and
Hmm.
kind of basically being in touch with nature,
Yeah,
really, if I'm
yeah.
honest. I do
Hmm.
nature journaling and some things like that as well. So, yeah,
Cool.
photography.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like to be busy, but I have an artistic side to me as well when I let it come out and play.
Hmm. And so when you let your artistic side out, what do you play with? What are the mediums you play with?
I think photography is one.
Hmm.
And I honestly, like, I bought myself a camera about 10 years ago, like, you know, more of an SLR style one where I could zoom right in and do
Hmm.
macro photography, which mostly I like to photograph, um, like what's going on in nature. So
Hmm.
if I can zoom in on a bird or even like an interesting mushroom, and then I'll take it home and I'll draw it in my nature journal and then I'll look up information about it and I'll write about it. And I might even
Hmm.
write a story about it because I do love writing creatively.
Hmm.
Um, Words are like food for me. I
Yeah.
love words. So yeah, that's some
Yeah.
of what I play with.
Yeah, very cool. You have a couple of programs. Well, I know you've got a couple of programs coming up, or you're working on something for this summer, a workshop of some sort. I don't have kids, so I'm totally out of the loop.
That's all good.
I just know that you do stuff with kids, and I've
Yes.
seen some of the stuff that you've been posting on social media about it. So, can you explain a little bit about what that might be?
Yeah, I am so excited about this. Thank you for asking. I've partnered with another local literacy specialist. Her
Hmm.
name's Laurel Sanders, and she's owns Brilliant Futures Tutoring. Little plug for her. She does brilliant work.
Hmm.
We're both trained in Orton Gillingham method of teaching literacy, and encourage you, your viewers, to look that up. It's been around for a really long time,
Hmm.
and but that's not the method we'll be using. And so we have created something called a reading booster camp,
Okay.
and that will be for the month of July from the 3rd to the 30th.
Hmm.
And so we're inviting parents to enroll their kids in that. And it's a half-day program, Monday to Friday. So it'll be mornings and they'll be done by lunch, and then, you can be off to the beach or off for your picnics or the things you love to do in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a really immersive learning experience for kids who are struggling with their reading development. And so all we're going to be doing is like reading and spelling and everything English language to really boost those kids and get them moving forward in their reading. In a scientifically like evidence-based program that we're going to be using,
Mm-hmm.
and lots of games. And of course, you know what? When you're learning, it's got to be fun.
Oh yeah.
It's got to be engaging and super hands-on for children, or you're going to lose them in the first 15 minutes. And so
Yes.
we know that as teachers.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're planning like crazy to make it fun and yet solid academically.
Mm-hmm.
And interestingly, about the Reading Booster Camp, we researched for about 6 months before we decided to create this.
Mm-hmm.
Where else in Canada is something like this available? Because we thought, is it even happening? And the closest one we could find was Southern Ontario.
Wow.
It's a unique opportunity for
Yes.
families in this region to really allow their kids to immerse in the reading
Mm-hmm.
and growth experience.
Wow,
So,
that's so cool. And so sad that yeah, I mean, there's so few things that are actually available that are so helpful for people of all ages here in our region.
yes,
There's a
right.
few of us that do these crazy imaginative and fascinating and wonderful things to help people, and nobody knows about them, which is part of why I'm doing these things as well, right? So,
Yeah, thanks, Lori.
when you're working, like, what age group are you working with? Are you specified to a particular age group?
So with the Reading Booster Camp in
With
particular,
any, yeah, with that and with any of the stuff that you do.
right? Well, with specifically the Reading Booster Camp, we're targeting and inviting children that have finished grade 1 at the
Okay.
end of this school year and up.
Okay.
And we're not limiting it to elementary school because both Laurel and I have seen lots of teens come into our practice who
Mm-hmm.
want to be better readers, who are
Mm-hmm.
like they might be functional reader, but they have dreams that they need to be a stronger reader for.
Yeah.
And so those kids are also welcome.
Mm-hmm.
And I work with kids that are 5 to 18 in the body brain learning practice around. And actually, I've been also working with parents. So
Mm-hmm.
I invite parents to come for a body brain balancing session because I'll tell you, I know as a parent of neurodivergent children,
Mm-hmm.
the stress level in the adults in the family can be quite high, and that can lead to breakdown in the family. So as a mama and a wife who's experienced that, and we've, by God's grace, have made it through, and lots of support with therapeutic services like what you do and what I'm now doing,
Mm-hmm.
we made it through.
Yeah.
And so I believe that when we strengthen the adults in the family, the children are the like benefit, right?
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
also offer that. Yeah.
No, that's so wonderful. And so, okay, again, I don't have kids, and neurodivergent is a new term, but when did that actually come into being a term that's being used now? Like pretty much everywhere you go, it's neurodivergent. So, what classifies a child, a person, an adult as being neurodivergent?
Oh, that's such a great question. Yeah, I just throw that word out there as if it's just like on the tip of everybody's tongue, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
thank you for asking that. I'm not sure when it was coined a term, but I'm definitely seeing it, I would say the last 3 or 4 years,
Mhm.
more frequently used in social media and other sources of information.
Right.
Therefore, it's becoming much more mainstream language,
Hmm.
right? And so to define it, I would say that it is somebody, you can either self-identify as neurodivergent, and so that might be a diagnosed um, state that
Hmm.
a person's brain works differently than some, than who, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But it might be a person who's autistic,
Okay.
who is, that would sort of fall into neurodivergent because they think differently, right?
Hmm. And the
And
spectrum is huge.
oh, it's huge. That just the autism
Yeah.
spectrum is huge.
Yeah.
But a person who's ADHD. So we
Hmm.
have a person in our family who is autistic. We have a person, well, we have more than, like in my nuclear family, we have somebody who's autistic, but I'm proud to say we're an autism family. Um, but we also have lots of folks who self-identify or who are diagnosed with ADHD. And
Hmm.
so as an adult, the diagnosis process is a little harder to go through. It can be worth it, but if it's important to you.
Hmm.
But we have an adult who's done a lot of research, and they've self-identified as ADHD because they don't want to go to all the doctor's appointments.
Right.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I know years ago I worked with child and youth mental health, and I know the hoops that families were going through and the wait list that they had in order to get their kids evaluated was just horrendous. Is it still that way, or do you know, is it still
It still
really?
is, and partly that's the dearth of services and professionals who are qualified to do psychoeducational assessments here in
Mhm.
Prince George and the surrounding region. Um, we had somebody when we were going through that process of having a psychoeducational assessment done with one of our kids. We actually had to, we paid for a private assessment. We saved up all our pennies and
Mhm.
decided to do that because he was 15 at the time, and we wanted to hustle the process
Right.
for his sake so that he could access services more quickly that were free
Mhm.
services.
Yeah.
That's the
Wow.
thing. And that's the other thing, is that body brain learning. I feel really strongly to create as many access points for families financially as
Mhm.
possible.
Right. Right.
So I'm now an autism service provider. So for children up to the age of 18 who have an autism diagnosis have in BC
Mhm.
have access to autism funding.
Right.
And so when they come to me, they can come for funded services.
Right.
Is really wonderful. And I have a couple of other funding sources that are available to families who are homeschooling and need help with their kiddos.
Mhm.
So I'm so excited and I'm going to continue to create multiple access points. Some people
Mhm.
come and they save up and they come, and it's worth it because it's a learning center that's here. But I also offer services over like Zoom and
Okay.
distance
Okay.
services for
Yeah, I was going
families.
to ask if you were
Yeah.
strictly local, or if you were doing stuff. Oh my God, is it snowing in town?
I just went for a walk, which is why my hair is all wet. And I was enjoying the rain so much, but it was raining on the Heart
Yeah.
half an hour ago.
Yeah. No, it's that heavy rain slush mix right now, but it's
Oh,
really white.
oh my goodness.
The joy of
Well,
living in the country.
it's precipitation. I'm thankful for that, I
Oh
guess.
yeah, absolutely. It's desperately needed. Total sidebar. Sorry about that.
Yeah. All good. All good. But no, I do
I'm a
offer
little
a
squirrel
distance.
myself, so.
Yeah. I actually offer a service, like a vision therapy kind of
Mhm.
service, because sometimes kids come to me and they're not learning to read. And so we look at how their eyes are working and
Right.
those muscles around the eyes. And so I can assess and set up a whole exercise program that's specific to what they need. And I've
Mhm.
done that with a family in Fort St. James over Zoom. So
Wow. Yeah.
yeah,
That's awesome.
it can be done.
And so the visual stuff, correct me if I'm wrong, did you not do a lot of work with Millie?
I did.
Did
Yeah.
you? Okay, yeah.
It's funny. She's so lovely. And she trained me. And then 10 minutes after she trained me, she said, "Oh, I think you'd be a really good fit to take over Vantage Vision and Reading, was her
Her thing.
not-for-profit for like 20 years.
Right.
She serviced hundreds of kids and did good work. And I said, no, no, I'm not really interested. And
Yeah.
so she did not give up. She did not give up. And here I am. I've taken over Vantage Vision and Reading, and then it's been now rebirthed into
Right.
body brain learning. But
That's wonderful.
I'm continuing her work.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, well. And for those that don't know, Millie Seville is a wonderful, wonderful lady. And many years ago, Dawn, you may not know this, but many years ago, I babysat her kids.
Oh.
We're from, yeah, from the same little town called Penny. And yeah, so I was 17 or 18 years old and I babysat her kids for, yeah,
Oh.
a couple of
I
summers, I
do
think.
remember her talking about being out there and the
Yeah.
connections to that community.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's just, yeah, it was just funny. And I know that she had been doing that, and I assumed that she was retired now. So I'm so glad to know that you've taken that mantle on, because that
Yeah.
is such fabulously important work, like really,
Yes.
really important. Yeah,
Yes. I'm really hoping to do more of it.
yeah.
But I think I've helped about 12 kids. And so now I'm really hoping to do more. So I've got some ideas tucked up my sleeve around that, including
Mm-hmm.
do maybe some mobile work where I go out to a community, like say, book to see some kid, like 10 or 20 kids, a certain week in May, every
Mm-hmm.
May, and then go out to like Smithers or Fort St. James or something. And every certain week in May, I see a bunch of kids, and
Right,
then I can continue to work with them over Zoom. So
right.
I'm really hoping, because it's ideal to meet with them in person at first.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then just to make this work available to families in the North,
Mm-hmm.
really important to me.
Wow. And so how many people are you going to have to be here, Dawn?
Exactly. I know I've already got a mentor of mine asking me, how are you going to duplicate yourself? I'm like, oh, that might be something you need to help me with.
Yeah, yeah, no kidding. Wow. So that is so fascinating. And yeah, like wow. I think
Yeah,
we are honored to have you doing this work in our region for sure.
thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun, and it's I mean it was born, Lori, out of desperation and longing as a mother,
Mm-hmm.
who, when our son was diagnosed autistic, he was almost 16. And of course, then I felt an urgency to get him as many funded services as we could squeeze in. We were a single income family at that time, and I was going to university. So
Mm-hmm.
we didn't have extra money,
Yeah.
and to travel elsewhere
Yeah.
for services. And so at that time, in like 2007, there's very much here for
Mm-hmm.
autistic individuals. There's a lot more now than there was. But I did a lot of Google searching and found a center that's doing very similar to work to what I'm doing now,
Mm-hmm.
called Abba's Child, and that was down in Northern California. The
Mm-hmm.
program at that time was $2,000, which was a lot of money for our family,
Yeah.
but would have been worth it. I
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And we couldn't afford to travel to Northern California. And so I just was heartbroken, actually, over
Mm-hmm.
not being able to do for my son what I wanted to do for him.
Right. Right.
And so out of that pain, really, was
Mm-hmm.
born the desire to start a learning center like what Abba's Child is doing here in the North.
Mm-hmm.
And what we're doing is quite different, because of course I bring a different skill set than what their director has.
Yeah.
But it's similar in that we really want to drill down to, why is this person suffering and why are they so stuck in their learning?
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, like with anything that we have to do in life, it's a matter of figuring out what the core issue is, right? The work that I do, that's absolutely, it's like, okay, let's cut through the garbage and let's find out what the underlying reason is. And generally, in my line of work, generally it's grief. And generally it is a huge lack of self-worth
Yeah.
for whatever reasons, whether people have ADHD or whether they've had trauma in their lives or whatever, right? So, um, yeah, and we just don't have the supports here that we absolutely need. So kudos.
Yeah, that's a good
Kudos.
point. That I actually see a lot of that as well. I see grief, I see some trauma, and I often see a core physical issue going on. For example, and it's probably a lot of it is psychological, emotional, and spiritual in nature.
Mhm,
But with natural bioenergetics and brain gym, we can approach it in a way that is gentle and compassionate, like your work.
mhm,
Right at the core of what we do is gentleness and compassion, and
yeah,
working with exactly what that person needs and
mhm,
is ready for in that moment. And we don't ever push past that. And
yeah,
so I love what you do as well, because um, it's that's really a core value for us at Body Brain Learning, is that gentleness, the compassion, and for
mhm.
only doing what that person is exactly ready for in that moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because yeah, you can't lead a horse to water and make it drink, right?
Oh.
Same with
And
you.
you know what, as far as most of my clients, they're stuck in their learning, and they already are really hard on themselves. They already think they should be doing better. They want to do better. They're already kind of beating themselves up.
Hmm.
So we're super, and I call that the therapeutic approach
Yeah.
to learning, is like we're just super affirming, and we start from where they're already strong and
Hmm.
what they're already brilliant at,
Yeah.
and we build a bridge to where they need to go together. And so it's a beautiful approach, and
Mhm.
meant to cultivate a um sort of reignite the learning spirit. I call that,
Right.
it burns on the inside of them, that they want to learn, because we all know, you watch a 3-year-old and they're delighted with everything in the world, right? And including the rocks on the walk that you go on, and they pick
Yeah.
up every rock and run over to you and show it to you, and they're
Mm.
fascinated. That's what I want to reawaken in all the students that I work with.
Yeah. Great. Fabulous. So a question for you around the brain gym.
Okay.
So does that address somatically a lot of what's going on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I call it the bottom up approach,
Hmm.
which many of us do that are working with the body first, because there's all kinds of good research, including Dr. Carla Hannaford. She's a neurophysiologist out of the States, and she wrote Smart Moves. And so her work really researches why we need to move in order to learn.
Okay.
And a lot of what I'm seeing is that we're telling, like, it's just the old school kind of way of thinking that we've inherited over the last couple of 100 years of schooling children, is we need to sit still and be quiet and do our learning. And I'm not finger pointing
No.
at all, because it's only been about 15 minutes since I've been out of that system, and I'm thankful that in Canada we have public free access to education.
Yeah.
So don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I know that um, we need to move when we learn, or we just don't learn. And then there's all kinds of research that Dr. Carla Hannaford gives to us on that, with
Hmm.
respect to that. So the brain gym addresses that needing to move in order to learn, and it can rebalance the way we think and the way that all of our brain parts talk to each other. It has an organizing effect.
Nice.
Yeah. So
Yeah. Well, I know I do somatic work with clients as well, and yeah, it's huge.
yeah.
The movement piece. And I know growing up, I have kid brothers that are quite a bit younger, and today I'm sure that the oldest one, who is absolutely bloody brilliant, would have been diagnosed as being neurodivergent way back when, but his was more of a physical thing. But he could not sit still. He absolutely could not sit still, which drove people crazy, including my parents,
Yeah.
and including the oldest sister that had to babysit him all the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I could understand some of those struggles from that aspect. I mean, he did grow out of it. Now, to get him motivated to do anything, it's like you got to start 2 hours before you're ready to go somewhere because he doesn't move too super quickly, but he is absolutely
Interesting.
brilliant. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a family member like that as well. You got to cue them quite a bit. And again, sounds really similar to your brother, where like I had to put like one of those sort of child harnesses on this child. If I was going to go into public with my 3 kids, I did not want to lose him in a parking lot because he would bolt so quickly
Yeah.
that and he wouldn't hang on to my hand because he had sensory issues around
Mm.
being held onto. So he wouldn't hold my hand, wouldn't go in the buggy because he'd climb out.
Hmm.
And so I finally had to harness this little person so that he stayed alive. But now, yeah, just
Yeah.
doesn't move a lot. So it's super interesting.
Yeah.
Got me
Yeah.
thinking.
Yeah, it is interesting. I know for my brother, he's yeah, he just a lot of it was he had his liver hadn't developed properly. So he couldn't process sugar and yet he was craving it constantly. So yeah, it was just this whole circle that mom and dad went through. And I can remember being really, really young. And at some point, I mean, the doctors didn't even know what to do with him. And they ended up he's going to kill me if he ever catches this.
Yeah.
But the doctors even put him on medication at the time, and my dad was absolutely, after like I think it wasn't even 2 weeks, and he insisted he come off of it because he was a little zombie. It wasn't
Oh,
natural or normal at all. But that's way back in the dark ages. I mean, we're
yeah.
talking about the 1970s where they just didn't know how to deal
No.
with stuff like this, right? Like all of the developments in terms of ADHD and autism and all of that kind of stuff has come forward in the last 30 or 40 years
Sure
where it was
has.
there 50 years ago.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, he would absolutely kill me now because he's brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah, no, so is my person, and incredible actually, and thinks about things in ways that I value and are quite different than
Mhm.
lots of the people I know. But I mean, he often reminds me of Leonardo da Vinci,
Mhm.
which was his hero when he was young.
Yeah.
And because just I'm sure that Leonardo da Vinci was neurodivergent.
Oh, I'm
I'm
sure.
sure, because just how deeply he thought about things, right? And yeah, it was incredible. I would have maybe someday we'll get to meet him, Lori.
Mhm. Yeah, maybe.
I
Yeah,
hope
I
so.
know with my kid brother, some of the stuff that came out now, he would have been probably 3 or 4 or 5 years old, maybe, when things like Battlestar Galactica and Star
Ah,
Wars first came out.
right.
And even before those shows came out, he could and actually did sit down at 3, 4, 5 years old and drew absolutely brilliant depictions of what their spaceships were at a
Really?
very, very young age without, maybe seeing a commercial on TV, but that was it.
Ah,
He could sit down and it was very detailed. And in later life has become a brilliant designer and engineer.
oh
So
yeah. There you go.
he's
So he's always thought like that
he's
then.
always thought that way
Cool.
and is super methodical when it comes to stuff. And now, I mean, he and I have some great conversations. He's down on the lower mainland right now and retired, but he and I would have great conversations because this is how you must do it. And I'm so not that way.
Yeah, you're a little more divergent
I'm
in
yeah,
your
totally the
thinking.
opposite end.
Yeah.
But we do over the years, besides clashing horribly as kids, we as adults have really developed an incredible bond and relationship because we can understand and appreciate each other's differences to that level. But it's a lot of growth in between, right?
Yep. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And that's interesting because I definitely, just being in a family that's neurodivergent,
Mm-hmm.
I've really come to see different ways that people process life,
Mm-hmm.
and like value it and appreciate it and see it from a strengths perspective.
Right.
And all the brilliant things about each person. And so then that's what I bring to my students and really coach. Actually, I do a lot of coaching with parents as I'm working with students. Like it's really important to me, as I've kind of mentioned already before, that, the kids come to me in the context of a community,
Yeah.
right? Their community is their family. And so I really, one of the ways I come alongside parents and I do a lot of coaching as we work together. And one of the things that I do is teaching them ways that they can see their child from a strengths-based perspective. These are the things they're brilliant at. Look at how they can do this, this, and this. And this is where we're going to start.
Right.
With working with this person.
Mm-hmm.
And first, we're going to do some body brain balancing sessions to drop the stress so that this person can actually learn, because often they come to me in this whole higher reasoning part of the brain, and the learning parts of the brain are offline because they're so stressed. They
Right.
can't.
Right.
So, yeah.
Okay. So now a question for you, if you don't mind sharing. What are, for some people that may be watching, that may be having issues with their kids, for instance, and they don't necessarily understand. So what are some of the things and feelings and thoughts, some of the processes that you went through in dealing with your kids in your situation that helped you to, like, how does what you actually experienced, how does that help someone, if you were to describe some of those things, how does that help someone who might be going through something now and not know what to do with their kid?
Right. Well, I think, standing in those shoes for a long time of even not the frustration of not knowing how to help, like seeing that the child is not learning, or they're stuck in their social skills, or they're stressed out and it's impacting their sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And so as parents, we love our kids, and the parents are the experts. They see who this kid is for their whole life, and they see that progression of, like, maybe the self-esteem drop because this kid isn't learning to read as fast as many of his typically developing peers.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so the frustration and the grief that comes with that, and the feeling stuck and not being able to fix it, is a really hard place to be as a parent. And I've been there. And so usually when I meet parents at the door, whether it's that first phone call or whatever that looks like, um, I I usually listen, lots of listening, and then I can reflect back to them based on, and often I can name some of those feelings for them, and then build the start to build a path on,
Mm-hmm.
okay, this is what I recommend we do first, and then we'll talk about what's next. And so I don't know if that answers your question, but
Yeah, I think it does, because the human condition, we have so many things that we worry about and concern about. So again, I don't have kids, so I don't have um that background, that understanding. I mean, I've been around and have family members that have kids, of course, and been around, all of my friends pretty much have kids. And so and as an outsider watching the struggle,
hmm,
I feel frustrated and confused and, okay, what the hell can I do to help? Because I'm that person, A to B, let's fix it, right? That's who I am. That's why I do what I do.
yeah.
That's why I actually can say I'm brilliant at it, is because I do cut through all the crap. But
Right,
as I don't know, and I can't understand the actual feelings,
right.
of what I imagine would be guilt, would be shame, would be
Yeah,
frustration, would be anger.
yeah,
Like, what are those things for the parent? And then, of course, because of the work I do, I know that what I'm thinking and feeling projects down to whoever else happens to be around me,
yeah,
and how that affects. So the body, the balancing, the natural balance, bioenergetics balancing is so huge for families that do come to you, for
Yes.
sure, because you can't get through to a parent, you can't get through to the siblings, you can't get through to the kid if
Yes.
they're all in that heightened state of what the actual F is going on here, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And often like you know, they're angry with the school system, they're angry with the teacher, and that's understandable because they like people are not fixing it.
Hmm.
And so often as just being a human, we need to blame somebody. And so and you know, that's a trap we all can fall into. And so it's definitely part of the coaching of parents, and you know, the empathizing, but coaching them into a place that's letting go of that blaming. But I do want to comment that in my experience, often the dads actually struggle the most.
Hmm.
um it's the heart, it's, I don't know, men and women I think are generally process their emotions differently. I don't know if you've seen that in your practice, but and I think lots of that is socialized into men and women. And so I think men often, my experience is they feel a lot of anger,
Hmm.
and but also a lot of shame. I think that if we drill down, there's a lot of shame around their child struggling. And
Hmm.
so I have some things tucked up my sleeve around wanting to do some work with families, but I'm not ready for that. But that's my dream, is to work more with family groupings,
Hmm.
because then we're strengthening and dropping the stress out of the family unit and helping them to process out, even as at a physical level, a bunch of that stress that's also, and guilt and shame and all the things that hide in our bodies,
Hmm. Hmm.
and drop that out so
Yeah.
they can be the most amazing parent that they want to be.
Hmm.
Right? Yeah.
And just you saying that, honestly, oh, my hubby just pulled up with our hay. Yay. I can honestly say after this, that I think at some point, maybe not right now, but definitely in the not too distant future, that you and I need to sit down and really have a discussion about how we can work together. Because I
Oh,
think that,
yes.
yeah, just in that last piece that you were talking about families and the men in general, I think there's some big pieces that I can bring to the table for you. And
That would be cool, because I really have, you know, I'm married, I have men in my life. I have two boys and and a husband, and so like my heart is for the men in the family to also be strengthened and healthier. But I'm sort of holding that, but and holding space for that, but don't have answers for that yet. So
mm,
yeah, that would be amazing actually
yeah.
to have a conversation about that.
Yeah, because I know definitely the bulk of my practice, and in fact, in the 10 years that I've been doing the work that I do, I've probably only actually worked with two men. And
Okay.
yet I know, I know you have to just look at our penal system, how many men and how many women, because men definitely, there, and we definitely need to have the supports in place for children and mums and
Yes, we
families in
do.
that respect, but the men do often get a lot of the blame and the shame put on them.
Yeah.
And a
And
lot of
maybe not as many supports, like in
and
some ways.
not very many supports at all. And men,
Yeah.
of course, because of our generation and our societal norms, don't want to reach out for help
Yeah. And
because
who
they
can
don't
blame
need it.
them? Who
They're
can
they're
blame them?
perfect, right?
Right? They've been socialized in a lot of ways to think that they don't need it. And so
Yeah.
you and I actually have tools
Yeah.
to help drop those belief systems out
Mhm.
so that they can get the help that they need and deserve.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And yeah, so that's awesome. And it's going to get really stupidly noisy here, so maybe we
Okay.
should just, I don't want to end this conversation. I'm really enjoying it because
Yeah.
I'm learning a lot. And I hope that whoever catches this on the YouTube channel, and once this is done, you can post this on your socials as well, or keep it for your, whatever use you want to use for it.
Okay.
um, because I think it's really important to get this information out. And if we don't collaborate and do these kinds of things
Yeah.
and help cross promote, if you will, cross promote each other, it's not even cross promoting each other. It's promoting the fact that these important, very, very important tools are available for everybody.
Yeah.
We just need to let people know that they're here,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, well, Dawn,
Okay,
thank
thank
you.
you,
Actually, our
Lori.
hour is almost up anyway, so thank you so much. I've enjoyed this so incredibly, and I look forward to many more conversations.
Thank you, Lori. I've really enjoyed it too. And have a wonderful Sunday.
Yeah, you too. Thank you so
Okay, take
much.
care.
Thanks. And everybody, I will definitely be posting a link in the when I post this up on YouTube of Dawn's business and her contact information. So thank you again, Dawn. Everybody have a fabulous Sunday, and we will see you all another day.
Okay.
Okay, bye.
Cheers. Bye.